The dim ember light of the studio flickered overhead as the art dealer knelt before the large wooden crate, worn and scarred from its journey across the seas. Dust clung to the surface, centuries of age whispering through the grain of the old wood. The air was thick with the smell of earth, old stone, and something more pungent, an undercurrent of ancient decay. The art dealer, a meticulous man with an eye for detail, had been waiting months for this particular delivery, though in truth it had been many years in the making. He wiped his brow, his breath heavy with anticipation as he began to pry open the wooden box. Each nail creaked, as though reluctant to part with its burden. With every inch that the crate opened, a faint scent of iron and damp soil wafted out, swirling into the air like a forgotten memory. Inside lay a mass of straw and old cloth, carefully packed to protect what it carried. An artifact, purchased from a long-forgotten village at the edge of the world. His fingers, trembling with eagerness, dug through the layers until they met cold stone. Slowly, he uncovered it. A statue, impossibly old, carved from a material that he could not immediately place. Its surface was smooth, almost unnaturally so, except the lines of age and scored edges like veins running through its form. The statue was a figure, humanoid, but grotesque. Its features were sharp, unnerving. The mouth, though closed, seemed poised to open in a scream, and its eyes, they were most unsettling. Though carved from stone, they seemed almost alive, as if they could see directly into the soul of anyone foolish enough to meet their gaze. The art dealer shivered as he stared into those eyes, though he could not explain why. The figure was familiar yet strange, something from the recesses of ancient nightmares. He ran his hand across the base of the statue where strange symbols were etched, symbols he did not recognize. It was then, as he adjusted his grip, that a sharp sting shot through his hand. With a hiss of pain, he pulled back, staring at the thin cut that now marred his palm. Blood welled up, dark and rich, and dripped slowly onto the statue. "Damn it," he muttered, more out of frustration than concern. He had cut himself on an old nail that jutted from the bottom of the crate, a remnant of its journey. Shaking his head, the art dealer stood up, intending to find a cloth to clean the wound. As he turned away, his back to the ancient statue, the first drop of blood slid down its surface, settling into one of the carved pores. The air in the room seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly at first. The scent of damp stone grew stronger, mingling with something else, something metallic, almost sweet. The art dealer didn't notice, busying himself with cleaning the cut on his hand, cursing under his breath at the carelessness of his injury. But behind him, unseen and unheard, the blood continued to seep into the statue. The grooves began to darken, the stone drinking in the blood as though it were alive. And then, the eyes opened. A faint crackling sound echoed in the stillness of the room. The once lifeless stone began to shift, the rigid lines of the figure softening, flesh taking shape where cold rock once stood. These eyes, once dull and empty, now gleamed with a terrible hunger. Slowly, deliberately, the figure began to move, its joints creaking like old leather pulled too tight. It inhaled, deeply, as though tasting the air for the first time in centuries. The art dealer, oblivious to the horror unfolding behind him, continued to wash his wound. He would have heard nothing, no footsteps, no rustle of movement, only the silence, thick and oppressive. But when he finally turned around, intending to return to his work, he froze. The statue was no longer just stone. The figure, now fully formed, stood before him, eyes locked onto his, burning with an ancient malice. Its mouth, once closed, was now open, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. Teeth that had not tasted blood in hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. Panic gripped the art dealer as he stumbled back, knocking over a stack of old books in his haste. He tried to scream, but the sound caught in his throat as the figure moved towards him, faster than he could comprehend. It towered over him now, its breath hot and foul, a scent of decay filling his lungs. For a brief, terrible moment, he realized what he had done. He had awakened something that should have remained buried. Something that hungered. Something that would not stop until it was sated. The last thing the art dealer saw was the gleam of those eyes, burning with ancient rage and hunger, before darkness overtook him. What's up, everybody? My name is Stone Rock. Welcome back to the channel, or it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. What we do here is I write a script about a subject, and then I write a short story about the subject to kind of introduce you to it. Today, we're talking about vampires, and not just any old vampire. We got a top 10 list for you. These are vampires from around the world. I hope you guys enjoy this one. This one took a little bit of work to get done, but I think it was worth it. So let's hop into it. And number one, we've got the Strigoi. Our first vampire hails from the dark forests of Romania, where vampire folklore first took root. The Strigoi, a creature of the night, is both feared and revered in Romanian folklore. Unlike the modern vampire, the Strigoi doesn't necessarily choose its victim at random. It often starts with its own family. The Strigoi are said to rise from their graves when their souls are trapped between the world of the living and dead. They can walk the earth once again, seeking blood to sustain their restless souls. While most of us associate vampires with the night, Strigoi are far more dangerous. Some legends claim that they can walk in daylight, although they're strongest when darkness falls. The Strigoi was a real fear among villages, and the steps taken to prevent one from returning were gruesome: decapitating, staking, and burning. Even after death, you could never be too sure a Strigoi wouldn't rise again. But how can you ever truly be sure from something that can cross the line between life and death? Number two, the Jiangshi. Next, we travel to China, where the Jiangshi brings a unique terror. These aren't your typical vampires, sleek and silent. No. The Jiangshi are corpses, stiff with rigor mortis, that hop through the night in search of life force or qi from the living. The Jiangshi is a fearsome sight, with green decaying flesh and outstretched arms. Unlike the subtle movements of other vampires, the Jiangshi moves in sudden, jerky leaps, and once it catches your scent, you'd better hope there's a Taoist priest nearby with the right talisman to stop it. In Chinese folklore, the Jiangshi's method of attack is unique. Rather than sinking fangs into your neck, it drains your life force by absorbing your energy. While it may not crave blood, its hunger is no less deadly. To avoid its wrath, some recommend surrounding yourself with mirrors or hanging a bag of rice, forcing the Jiangshi to stop and count every grain. Number 3. The Suyukant. From the Caribbean island comes the terrifying legend of the Suyukant. By day, she appears as an ordinary woman, often elderly, blending in with her community. But by night, she sheds her skin and transforms into a ball of fire, zooming through the dark skies in search of blood. The Suyukant doesn't need to sneak through windows or break through doors. Instead, she slips through cracks, feeding on her victims as they sleep. In the morning, all that's left are tiny puncture wounds and a drained, pale body. To stop her, locals would scatter salt or rice around the home, hoping the Suyukant would be compelled to stop and count every grain before dawn. But there's another, darker way to defeat her: finding the skin she sheds and destroying it. Without her skin, the Suyukant is vulnerable, but you better act fast, for if she finds you first, there is no escape. Number 4. The Vitala. India's Vitala is more than just a blood-drinking fiend. In fact, Vitalas are often thought of as spirits that possess corpses, turning them into vessels for their dark intentions. They don't just feed on blood, they feed on fear. Unlike other vampires, the Vitala doesn't need to bite you to spread terror. It merely needs to take control of a body, using it as a puppet to torment the living. Legends say that these creatures dwell in cemeteries, waiting for those foolish enough to disturb the dead. Once the Vitala possesses a body, it becomes a vessel for malevolence, doing its bidding and spreading chaos. The only way to rid yourself of the Vitala is through complex rituals. The most frightening thing about the Vitala? You could be talking to one right now, without even knowing that the body before you no longer belongs to the person you thought it did. The Aswang. Deep in the jungles of the Philippines, the Aswang lurks. This creature is unlike any other on our list. Not only does it drink blood, but it devours flesh. By day, it appears as a normal human, often a beautiful woman, but at night it transforms into a horrifying creature of unspeakable terror. The Aswang is a master of deception, using its beauty to lure its victims closer, but once the darkness falls, its true form is revealed. The Aswang can grow long, needle-like tongues to drain blood from its sleeping victim, or transform into terrifying beasts to hunt its prey. It's especially feared for its preference for pregnant women whose unborn children it consumes before they even have a chance to enter the world. Number 6. The Upir. In the frozen lands of Russia and Ukraine, there exists a creature more brutal than most. The Upir, a vampire unlike others, doesn't just thirst for blood, it craves flesh. The Upir walks among us during the day, blending in with society, but when night falls, it hunts, and its hunger is insatiable. The Upir legend is one of fear and violence. Unlike most vampires, which feed quietly and discreetly, the Upir tears its victims apart, consuming both blood and flesh. It's said to be so restless that once it starts feeding, nothing can stop. Local legends warn that if you see a Upir, there is little chance of surviving an encounter. Number 7. The Lamia. From ancient Greece comes the terrifying tale of the Lamia, a creature with an insatiable hunger for children. Once a beautiful queen, Lamia was cursed by Hera, the jealous wife of Zeus, after a torrid affair. The curse drove her mad, cursing her into a hideous monster form who roams the night, devouring children to ease her endless suffering. The Lamia is often depicted as a woman with a lower body of a serpent, though her appearance varies depending on the legend. What remains consistent is her cruel nature and her thirst for young victims. She is said to lurk in the caves and dark forests, luring children with her enchanting voice, only to snatch them away, never to be seen again. In ancient Greece, mothers would tell their children stories of the Lamia, hoping to frighten them into staying close to home after dark. But legends have a way of growing, and even today the Lamia is feared as one of the most heartless vampires in folklore. Number 8. Number 8 brings us the Loogaroo. From the islands of Haiti and parts of the Caribbean comes the story of the Loogaroo. Unlike other vampires, the Loogaroo is a witch who has made a pact with dark forces, trading her soul for powers beyond human understanding. She is forced to offer blood in exchange for her abilities, and so, each night she transforms and seeks out victims to drain. The Loogaroo is a shapeshifter, often described as being able to remove her skin at night and take on various forms, from a bat to a ball of fire. She slips through cracks and in walls and windows, draining blood from her victims, only to return to her human form by morning. To stop her, locals spread salt at doorways, believing that the Loogaroo must count every grain before entering, much like other vampire legends across the world. In Haiti, the Loogaroo is often linked to voodoo practices and dark rituals. Fear of her drives many to seek protection through talisman, charms, and holy rites. Number 9. The Penanggalan. In the rainforests of Malaysia and Indonesia, the Penanggalan haunts villages with its terrifying form. By day, she is a seemingly normal woman, but by night, her head detaches from her body, leaving her internal organs dangling beneath. She flies through the sky in search of pregnant women and newborn children, feeding on their blood to maintain her unnatural life. The Penanggalong's grotesque form is both horrifying and unmistakable. Her long black hair flows behind her as she hunts, her intestines glowing faintly in the night. Villagers leave thorny branches around their homes to tear the Penanggalong's organs, slowing her down or trapping her before she can strike. Much like the Sukuyant of the Caribbean, the Penanggalong is believed to slip through tiny openings, entering homes without being noticed until it's too late. Pregnant women are especially vulnerable as the Penanggalong prefers to feed on the blood of the unborn, ensuring her eternal youth and beauty. At number 10, we have the Chupacabra. Our final vampire is perhaps one of the most well-known in modern folklore, the Chupacabra. This creature gained notoriety in the 1990s, though stories of blood-sucking beasts had existed for much longer in Latin American legends. The name Chupacabra literally translates to goat sucker, and it earned this title by draining livestock of blood in the dead of night. The Chupacabra is said to be a small reptilian creature with spines running down its back and glowing red eyes. Unlike other vampires, it doesn't attack humans. Its primary target is livestock. Farmers would awaken to find their animals lifeless, completely drained of blood, but with no signs of struggle. While some believe the Chupacabra to be a modern myth, others swear by its existence, offering sightings and photographs as proof. Whether it's the result of human imagination or a real predator stalking the lands of Latin America, the Chupacabra remains a symbol of fear and mystery. And so, the vampires of legend and lore continue to haunt the world, from the darkest forests of Europe to the misty mountains of Asia and the sun-soaked islands of the Caribbean. Their forms may vary, but their hunger is always the same. If you enjoyed learning about these vampires from around the world, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your thoughts on which creature haunts your nightmares the most down below. Anyways, stay safe, guys. Catch you next time. Peace.